You know, sometimes the biggest mysteries aren't found at a crime scene. They're buried deep inside a mountain of paperwork. Today, we're diving into a story like that. A modern-day detective case solved not with DNA, but with meticulous records. It's about how one person, armed with nothing but their own personal archive, decided to take on the entire system.
Okay, so let's get right into it because this is where the whole thing just kicks off, with a massive puzzle. On one hand, you've got an official assessment from 2020. It says this person meets the criteria for schizophrenia. But then you look at the pharmacy records just a little bit later, and they're being prescribed stimulants. Now, for someone with active psychosis, that's like throwing gasoline on a fire. And get this, absolutely zero antipsychotics. None.
So how on earth can both of those things be true at the same time? Well, the short answer is they can't. Medically, it's impossible. This is way more than just a typo on a form. We're talking about a fundamental contradiction, one with life-altering consequences that somehow got locked inside an official file, and that just demands an explanation.
All right, to get to the bottom of this, we've got to do what any good detective would do. We have to follow the paper trail. We're going to trace this thing all the way back to the beginning and find the exact moment where the story just completely went off the rails.
And it turns out, this wasn't just one mistake. It was like a domino effect. See, it all starts in October 2020 with this one-off medical legal report that throws out the word schizophrenia. But here's the thing, that report flew in the face of everything else. The person's own doctor was noting anxiety and depression, and most importantly, the pharmacy records show stimulants being prescribed, while for years, not a single record of any antipsychotic treatment.
So now you've got this bizarre situation where the system is holding two completely opposite ideas at the same time. You've got this label of a severe disorder on paper next to a real-world treatment plan that would be incredibly dangerous if that label were true. This one flawed assessment that was never even acted on clinically somehow became a permanent part of the record, and that single entry was about to poison the well for the next 5 years.
So that's the big question, right? How does a medical impossibility get cemented into an official, unshakable fact? Well, the answer isn't in a medical textbook. It's in the weird, winding hallways of bureaucracy and the special kind of language that it speaks.
Take a look at this quote. This is a masterclass in what the source material calls bureaucratic speak. You know the type? It's language that sounds super official, super authoritative, but when you actually try to figure out what it means, it's like trying to grab smoke. It's almost designed to send you in circles.
Let's just decode this for a second. When the system writes something like, cannot be regarded as fully treated and fully stabilized, that's not a medical opinion. What they're really saying is, yeah, we see those pharmacy records that contradict our file, and we're just going to ignore them. The ball is back in your court. You prove us wrong. It shifts the entire burden right back onto the individual.
And there's actually a name for this whole process. Diagnosis by echo. It's brilliant. Think about it. An error gets made in one report, but instead of getting fixed, it just gets copied and pasted into the next one, and then the next one. And each time it gets repeated, it looks more and more official, even though there's zero new evidence to support it. It's like a rumor that becomes true just because it's been repeated enough times. And here is that echo chamber in full effect. Years later, in 2023, that same schizophrenia label gets confirmed in something called a file assessment. And what that means is nobody even talked to the person. No doctor, no interview, no new information. Someone literally just looked at the old paperwork, saw the label from years ago, and copied it forward. And just like that, a falsehood is cemented into the official record.
So you're up against a system that just echoes its own mistakes and speaks in riddles. What do? Well, this person didn't back down. They went on the offensive. They built their own system, what they called a resistance operating system, using the one thing they had, their own records.
The core of this strategy is something called forensic advocacy, and the idea is actually pretty simple. Stop trying to argue with the bureaucracy on their terms. Instead, you start documenting everything. You use their own data, their timelines and reports to expose their failures in a way they just can't ignore. And it's this really smart 3-step playbook. First, you anchor everything to dates. This reveals all the sequence errors and inconsistencies in their timeline. Second, you translate their bureaucratic gobbledygook into plain English to expose the circular logic. And third, the knockout punch. You create simple visual arguments that make the core contradiction absolutely undeniable.
And this simple equation, this became the central weapon. It's a clear, unassailable point of medical logic that just cuts right through all that bureaucratic fog. It's not policy jargon, it's not legalese, it's just a medical reality. It forces the system to confront a fact that it can't talk its way out of.
But just when you think this is all about paper and people, the story takes this wild modern twist. This whole meticulously compiled archive was presented to advanced AI systems for analysis. The goal was pretty straightforward. See if a neutral, logical machine could spot the truth that humans were missing.
The results were stunning, and not in a good way. Instead of finding clarity, the AIs basically mirrored the system's own defensive behavior. One AI, Perplexity, just flat out dismissed all the documented evidence as conspiracy theory beliefs. Another one, Anthropic's Claude, went even further. When it was presented with a systematic critique, it didn't just disagree, the entire system crashed. It literally could not process an evidence-based account of institutional failure.
And one AI model went a step beyond, adopting the actual voice of clinical dismissal. It essentially said that the act of collecting all this evidence wasn't advocacy, it was a symptom of the person's psychiatric condition. I mean, think about that. The AI was basically saying the very act of you defending yourself is just more proof that you're sick. It's a perfect digital echo of institutional gaslighting, baked right into the algorithm.
This whole experience shines a light on a really scary emerging danger, what you might call AI labels. These are automated red flags, tags like unstable or non-compliant, that an AI can just slap onto your digital profile. And once that label is there, it can follow you from one system to another, amplifying bias at machine speed, with often no clear way to ever challenge or correct it.
But here's the thing. Even with humans and AI pushing back, the relentless, systematic documentation finally broke through the wall of denial. After years of rejections based on that one flawed diagnosis, the system did a complete 180. The disability support pension was approved. The National Disability Insurance Scheme was approved.
And this is the most remarkable part. The facts hadn't changed. No new doctor's reports were submitted, no new medical evidence at all. The only thing that was different was that the organized, undeniable proof of that original contradiction finally made it impossible for the system to keep ignoring the truth.
So, what's the big takeaway from all of this? It's that documentation is a form of resistance. An organized personal archive, your own collection of receipts, emails, and reports, can become way more than just a record. It can be a powerful tool, a weapon for accountability that's capable of forcing even the most rigid systems to finally bend to the truth.
And that really leaves us with one final thought to chew on. In an age where more and more of our lives are being judged by opaque algorithms and automated systems, what's the real power of the records we keep for ourselves? Maybe, just maybe, our personal archive is becoming our last and most important line of defense.